Good morning to everyone on Zoom. So this first session is designed mostly for folks who really haven't spent a lot of time playing around with some of these large language models. It just want to make sure everyone feels like they're in the right place. We do have a session coming up right after this where we go a little bit more in depth and talk a little bit more in depth about some of the things it can do and maybe some ideas that maybe you have or haven't tried on your own in your classroom. But this first one is we're going to spend a lot of time just allowing you just kind of some structured opportunities just to kind of play around. So individually, and then we'll do a little group work as well. So again, welcome everyone. My name is Michael Taketa. I am an English faculty member here from City College.
Hi, Jason Thomas. I'm a biology faculty member here.
I'm Lauren Garros. I'm an English instructor.
I'm Jay Franklin. I'm a student here.
Sally Potter, and I am an EMLS linguistics faculty.
And so we actually, this group, in addition to a couple other folks, have been working for at least the last couple months now, thinking a lot about artificial intelligence, how it impacts the college, how it impacts higher education in general. If you're involved in Senate, then you know that we've produced and introduced a set of guidelines. Although I think that the college is going to be pushing for some more policies coming up in the near future. So we're the group that so far under the Academic Senate has been kind of looking at these issues. And if any of you are interested in this and participating moving forward, please don't hesitate to email me, Michael Taketa, and I can let you know when we meet, and you can join us for these discussions.
How often do you have the discussion?
We've been meeting every other week.
Meeting every week.
We have been meeting every week.
Yeah.
We're trying to get the guidelines done. So every Monday at 1 o'clock in the Academic Senate office. We actually haven't talked about what that's going to look like for the spring semester, but that may have to change based on schedules. But
Yeah, something to add to that too. If you are thinking about joining us and like maybe you're feeling like, oh, well, I don't really know much about AI. That's actually some of the voices that we need as well. One of the things that we recognize as a task force is that we have this large gamut of people with different experiences with AI. Those who are very, very comfortable and those who might not know what it is yet. And so we need voices from all of those different constituents that would really help out with the task force as well. So if you feel like you don't know enough about AI, don't let that stop you.
absolutely, and that's one of the things I've very much appreciated about this group is having the participation of Jay, because again, the student perspective has really helped us in understanding a lot of the ways that students are actually using it, and the way that they're feeling about it. And we have had a couple other students jump in and out of the discussions as well. So that's been very, very beneficial. So again, so today our hope is just that by the end of this, you will at least all be familiar with some of the different things that these AI platforms can do, ChatGPT, and then we'll also look at another one called Dolly, which is an image generating platform. So again, then just to kind of understand, at least on a basic level, what it can and what it can't do, and then maybe start exploring. And we're hoping maybe this happens in the group setting, but start exploring some of the ways that you might be able to utilize it in your practice and in your classes.
Question: is ChatGPT the AI that most students are using, or are they using Grammarly or Bard, or are there others that they're using? Or
Did everyone online hear that question? So the question was, just to repeat it, is what is the platform that most students are utilizing currently? Jay, do you have a sense of that?
Yeah, I got a pretty good sense. ChatGPT probably is the one that students are most using, but mostly because that's the one that everybody's talking about, especially like in the news. So that's the one that they hear about all the time. But I'll bet that a lot of students are using Google and being a whole lot more than they think they are, because it's essentially built into their front ends now as well. So yeah, ChatGPT is the one that they're most consciously using.
It's important to remember too that a lot of the AIs that you see that are available at companies that are advertising their software as AI really just is ChatGPT under the hood. And so ChatGPT has been the ones that have given their open source material for other companies to use. And so they'll use modifications that they've made to ChatGPT, or even just given it specific instructions to act a certain way. But majority of it is still ChatGPT. Yeah.
Bard is different though, right? Bard, I know a lot of students will use Bard for like multiple choice quizzes because it's not trained in 21 like ChatGPT. It's up to date, so people will just cut and paste the quizzes in, and Bard will give them.
So Wes just mentioned, for those of you online, if you didn't hear, that Bard is more up to date, and so for certain tasks, students are probably using Bard as well. And then just to kind of highlight something that Jason mentioned, I don't know how many of you are familiar with Khan Academy and a lot of the services that they provide. But Khan Academy actually, to Jason's point, they partnered with OpenAI and ChatGPT to create something called Conmigo. Any of you familiar with Conmigo? Karen, Wes is shaking his head. So Conmigo, it's actually a paid service. I think it's still a paid service. But it marries, if you're familiar with Khan Academy, it marries a lot of the content from Khan Academy with ChatGPT, so that for example, if you're taking a business class and you're watching a video from Khan Academy about a particular business concept, they have the platform there with AI built into it, ChatGPT built into it, where you can then have a conversation to ask it about anything you didn't understand about anything that happened in that video. It's scary, it's fascinating, and so for many of us in higher education, I think it'd be worth it. I did it for a month just to play with it. This is kind of off topics. I don't want to go too far in this, but you might want to just jump into Conmigo and check it out and see what it can do. Yeah, because the power and the capability that it has is kind of scary, I think, particularly for those in our profession. The first thing we wanted to talk about is just kind of about what the technology is that's behind ChatGPT and Bard and some of these other generative AI models. It's large language models. Jason, do you have a good sense of that?
Yes. So large language models, what large language models are, large language models is what these companies have come up with is they've taken all of this training data essentially from the internet and from books and other resources. And these large language models, you want to be careful how you say it, because it's not generating new information, but it's taking all of that information that it's been trained on, and it comes up with predictions essentially on what it should respond back with. And so the benefit of these large language models is, we don't know everything as humans. We have a limited capacity of information that we can take in. And so these large language models can have this much large library of information that they can information from and give pretty sophisticated responses to. Again, you want to be careful to say that it's not generating new information. That's actually a totally different type of AI called artificial general intelligence that, there's been some whispers that might be coming in the future, but artificial intelligence has been widely available now through these companies like OpenAI and Google to where they're pretty much accessible to everyone now. Anything to add?
No.
Yeah.
You want to just keep going up?
And so ChatGPT is one of the more popular ones that we talked about, that is being used by students, being used by professionals in the field, being used by pretty much in every field now. And so as educators, we don't want to necessarily leave that in the dust. It's going to be a new tool that students are going to use both ethically and unethically. That's going to be some of the things we talk about in one of our next sessions, for example. Yeah.
I had a question about the LLMs. As I understand it, they're based around general information and they don't specialize in any particular area. So when you get to a specialized area, they're going to have a higher error rate than they are on a more generalized topic. Like, for example, I've taken some of my questions in my business law class that are law-based, and they produce at best a C-level answer.
Right. Yeah, I would totally agree. That's something that I was actually going to talk about in our next session is that, yeah, it can produce it can produce good answers, but if you, as experts in our field, we know that subject better than the general population. And so when we really look in to see what it's spitting out, a lot of times it is very basic level information. Now, that being said, you can kind of work with these language models in a way to where it does give you a little bit better understanding. So for example, you can tease it and say, pretend that you are an expert, and I'm biology, so just pretend that you're an expert in microbiology, and it will actually give you a better answer.
I suppose the other possibility would be as time goes on, they will focus in on specific areas and get large language models in those specific areas, which would fix that problem as well.
Oh, for sure. One of the things I mentioned earlier is that we have all of these different programs that are advertised as AI. A lot of them are ChatGPT under the hood, but what makes them different is that they have been given specific instructions to follow that helps it focus more in those special content areas.
Insight, right? You can just tell it, consider only Plato, consider only philosophers, and it will, on the pay side, it will take out those general parameters and just focus on the parameters you want. I think pretty sophisticated stuff when you narrow the parameters to just a particular one. It doesn't have that problem with bringing in general knowledge, because you can just tell it only consider the answers of ethicists or something like that.
Yep, exactly. And so we're actually going to have some time in today's workshop for you to actually use ChatGPT, start putting some prompts. We're going to walk around and help you out with them. But one of the things that once you start using these language models a lot, that you'll see is absolutely necessary is that usually the first answer that gets spit out from these large language models is usually not good enough. And so like you mentioned, you usually have to give it more instructions to specifically focus in these content areas that you want it to do, or to answer a question in a specific way. So for example, one way that I will tailor a lot of my prompts if I'm curious on how it might come out as a student response is I'll start it and say, as an undergraduate student, answer this question. It'll give me a very, very different question than if I were to just ask it, answer this question without any kind of qualifiers behind it. Yeah. And so, yeah, go for it.
Just a quick thing to add to your point is that right now we're talking about large language models in the general sense, ChatGPT, Bard, etc., Claude. But there are a lot of companies who are making specific large language models for their essentially their specific use or for their specific business. One of the most popular right now is Bloomberg, who is training their own large language model completely aside from ChatGPT and OpenAI that is focused specifically on finance, for example. And so, yeah, there are a lot of companies who are training their own AIs so that they're much better, much more of an expert in, their particular field of business. So yeah, but today we're really just focusing on the general AI that, we all have access to, and what students and instructors have access to without going into these specific fields.
It just to add one more thing to that point, ChatGPT also now allows users, you can create your own chatbot. What that means then is that you can feed it whatever information that you want to feed it. So for example, I actually played around, I put a little bit of a couple sections of Title V into it. And then based on that, it reads and understands that. And then you can just ask questions about, what does Title V say about blah, blah, blah? And then it'll just spit out an answer. So you can train it on whatever you want. Like I haven't done it yet, but I was thinking about playing with it with our contract just for fun, like throw our contract in there and then just start asking it questions. And with that kind of capability, you can feed it anything. In fact, I've put in documents from PDFs that were just scans from books, from PDFs onto it. And it will read the PDF and then it can summarize it. You can ask questions about it. It already has quite a bit of capability.
So in the past, when I've played with it and I've fed it articles that my students were reading and asked it to summarize, it didn't do a summary as well as I would want. And I'm wondering the danger of that, if it's telling us about laws, contracts, if it's hallucinating or giving us, incorrect information. How do we, I think that's an important piece of this, is fact checking it, which isn't so easy,
Well, go to that. I mean, if you were to throw in the contract, the union contract, it's a different way that a non-lawyer would read that agreement. A lawyer would, in fact, it would be an incorrect way of reading it. There are certain rules that you have to follow to read the contract. That if you're just taking it from a general standpoint, you would reach incorrect conclusions.
And I think it's really important to understand that ChatGPT does not work like the human brain. It sounds like a human, but it's completely different. So I think that's an important concept as well.
Right. Yeah. These are all very important things. And then it gets down to how you actually use it. Right.
So what it sounds like is more sophisticated students are going to get better answers with it than unsophisticated students.
So this is actually something we're going to get into in the second session. A lot more into a lot of the equity implications of really not introducing and teaching students how to use it. But anyway, that's for the next.
ChatGPT passed the bar though, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it passed the bar on the 90th percentile, so it knows lawyer talk too.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not passed the bar.
Question is who is feeding it the information
Exactly.
and how are they feeding it?
Well, I think that it just took the test, right? It
just put the test.
Yeah.
Do you have to have the deluxe model to feed that information, or can you feed it on the basic model?
You can feed a limited amount of information on the base model. Base model is still very good. The deluxe version is a lot better, but the base model will absolutely get you by on probably
So
99%.
how do you feed that information? Like you say, you guys are loaded uploading like PDFs of entire books.
We might be
Yeah, we
able
have
to get
some
there at some
examples.
point.
Yeah, we have some examples to show.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Just after.
Okay. We're to that point.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Before- whoever wants to
somebody
jump in.
first. Sure. So in preparing for this, I had some examples that I wanted to show specifically on different types of feedback. So looking specifically at education, specific type of feedback mechanisms that in fact students could use to get instantaneous feedback and even stuff that you could use to make assignments and course and stuff like this. And so what I have done is I've made a ChatGPT prompt specifically for one of my courses. And so this is the prompt right here. I am using the deluxe version of ChatGPT in here. But everything that I put in here should work on the basic version as well. And so you can see how I'm feeding it some of the information here. Let's see if I can make this a little bit bigger. And so I started off the prompt, like I mentioned earlier, telling it exactly where to focus. And so I said, I am an instructor at a community college that teaches an introduction microbiology course to allied health majors at an undergraduate level. Here's some information about the class I teach, and I'm going to ask you some questions. So I am priming it for these questions that I want to ask, and all this information below it is I just copy and pasted the course outline of record. So it knows exactly what's going to be covered in the class and what the expectations of the class are. And so then after, it says it's a very comprehensive and detailed course. Okay, fine. And then, I know, it's trying to flatter me a little bit first. But then it gets ready to assist, and so I ask it. So for this one specifically, I wanted to see if it could create a discussion prompt. And so I asked it, can you create a discussion prompt from this course where students must choose a human pathogen and write basic information about the organism? And it would take me forever to go through everything it generated, but just to show you briefly, it created a full discussion prompt. It said exactly when, it even gave areas where I can insert in due dates. It gave me exactly the topics I could cover. It even gave me a short grading criteria. Now, if I were making this an actual assignment, I would probably want to create a rubric. So I asked it to create a rubric. I said, can you create a rubric for this assignment and put it in the table format? And it made a full entire rubric for me. Now, I will say, like you were mentioning earlier, as I'm reading over this prompt, this is nothing that I would ever probably give my class on its face basis. There is a lot more information that I would have to add that's very specific to the course, and it could be improved a lot as an expert in my field that I can recognize as I look through this. But where I think this is really powerful for students is I would then come in here and say, can you write an initial response to what this prompt should be? Now, instead of making an initial response to something that I might give as my students as a sample assignment, maybe they can put in what they wrote for their response. And where this becomes powerful is then you can then ask it to evaluate the example against the rubric. So it will take that rubric that it's created and take either my example prompt, or a student could put in their own prompt and see how it compares against that rubric. I'm going to go a little bit more over this in the next session to where it goes into more detail, but just to show some of the things that ChatGPT is capable of, I even asked it, what are some of the weak points in the same example that it produced? Not only asked it for its weak points, but later down, I asked it to rewrite it to address those weak points. And then later on, I asked it to check the SLOs. This is more for assessment later on. But one of the things that I really wanted to share, because there's a lot of concern about AI in classes and stuff, you know what? Put that concern in ChatGPT. I asked it specifically, how can I edit the prompt to make it more difficult for AI and LLMs to be able to answer it? And I got a response that tells it, hey, you know what? Maybe you want to put some more personal experiences into the prompt, or maybe you can encourage student discussions in different ways. And so it gave all of this feedback as well. This is a link that I don't mind sharing out, and so you can go through this in more detail and see more examples. One more thing I wanted to show is how you can input some information, and students can do this to get some really useful study information. So this shows how students can use it in an ethical way to help them in their classes. And so what I did was I took one of my PowerPoints, this is the same exact PowerPoint I use in my class, and I asked it to make a multiple choice practice exam. And it did just that. It made a practice exam that the student can then take and practice the different material that's directly from my material. So it's using that outside information from its training from its training, but it's putting it a lot more specific to the data that I'm feeding it, just like we talked about earlier. What I really like about this is maybe the student's working through this and they're really struggling with one of the questions. Well, they can say, well, I don't understand question number 10. Can you give me a simple explanation on it? And ChatGPT gave a very good explanation on the correct answer for that. You can also, I also asked it to make a study guide from the PowerPoint, and it did that. You can even go down to things as basic as like, can you make me flashcards for a specific topic within that PowerPoint? And it did just that. It gave me the different topics that I can put on the front and the back of a flashcard to use that as a student to study.
Let me show mine right now, Jason.
All right, Sally's going to kind of, I think it's kind of related.
Could you upload the PowerPoint? Yeah, how do you upload the PowerPoint?
So the PowerPoint, so to upload the PowerPoint specifically, I think that is specific for the deluxe version. And so you can put as much information as you want into the basic version. So you
But
can,
you're just typing it in the what? In the message box?
in the prompt field, there will be a button to attach, to put in
Oh, I
an
see.
attachment. And this is in the deluxe version. But there's also other AIs that will allow you to do it for free as
But
well.
I'm
So for
saying
example,
to
Google Bard.
input the information into the basic version.
Mhm.
I just have to type it in the message field.
Exactly,
So I'm
yeah.
just sitting there typing all that crap in the message.
Or copy and pasting it, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, so I'm gonna show mine. This is I think hopefully the people who are on Zoom can see my Word document, please.
It is not showing.
Is it not showing?
I think you have to reshare specifically to the document.
There you go.
Okay.
You can have, yes.
Okay, so I just made screenshots and then I put them in this Word document because I knew that this would work. So this is from a conversation that I had with ChatGPT. They were talking about people in the AI group that are less sophisticated and don't necessarily know a lot about AI. I'm that person in the group. Okay, so I use it for very basic stuff. This is what I use it for. I have some examples of my quote unquote book, if you want to take a look at it. If you want to, afterwards, we can maybe pass it around. So basically what it is I have been offering my linguistics courses as free. I don't charge for a textbook. What I do is I just find articles from the web, from the library, and I make copies of them. Well, this semester I decided instead of having to run back and forth to the very inconveniently located now production office that is very far, I don't want to walk over there. Instead of doing that, I'm going to make packets. So this is my first packet. This is for about probably the first 5 weeks. All of my articles, I just put them into a packet. So instead of having to, make copies of it every week or every couple or twice a week, put them all together. And then what I did is make like little intros, little pre-reading questions, little discussion questions, kind of, and I've made it like a table of content. So it's kind of like, it's like a booklet, like a book. It's like professional, grab some openly licensed pictures. It's like, looks kind of nice. And like the formatting all the same. Took me like a day, like about 5 hours to put it all together. Just making the discussion questions and like the intro, writing the intros. I mean, that is like, that would be like hours and hours and hours of work to write all that. So I just had ChatGPT write it. Okay. So, so here's what I did. Okay. So I did not think of uploading my whole COR to ChatGPT. I just asked it some really basic questions. This is what I asked it. I said, write some pre-reading. I did not even put capital letters or punctuation. You don't need to. You don't have to be polite to it. You just type it. Okay. Write some pre-reading questions for first-year linguistics students who are about to read this article, : And then I just copied and pasted the article into it. No formatting, just copied and pasted the article. Okay, so here's the article, da, 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 da. I didn't screenshot the whole article. The article is several pages long. Like, I don't know, 25 pages or something. Okay, so here's what ChatGPT did for me. Okay, creating pre-reading questions for students, da, 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 gave me this whole little thing. However, the pre-reading questions are not pre-reading questions. Okay, so how does the article describe the relationship between mental okay, the article mentions that the word frequency has okay, what is the recency effect in language processing? How does the article illustrate? These are not pre-reading questions. This thing is not giving me what I want. Okay, idiot. Okay, no. Okay, so I say back to it. The questions can't refer to the article because the students haven't read it yet. It has to get them thinking about the topic and pull in information they already know. Can you write some different questions, dummy? Okay, it says to me, certainly. Okay, it's very polite to me. Pre-reading questions for first year linguistics students. Okay, the brain, da, 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 da. So now it gives me some actual pre-reading questions. And it gave me like 10. Okay, I cut off, so I didn't do the whole thing. Okay. Some of them were pretty good. Some of them were not that good, but enough to give me a few, like I picked out about 5. Oh, here's the rest of them. Da, 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 da. Okay. And then, so I picked out about 5. And then I say, now write a short introduction for that article. Short introduction for that article. So here's what it gave me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 paragraphs. That's not a short introduction. Okay. That's too long. Make it only 1 paragraph long. Okay.
The introduction, how long was the original article?
The original article was like 20 pages or something. So yeah. Okay. But so I'm telling that I want a short. So then it gave me 1 paragraph. Okay. You have to tell it what you want. Okay. So then I say, now write some questions for discussion for the students after they have read the article. I could have gone back and got their original questions, but I just wanted new questions. So it gives you these little, after reading it's beneficial for students. Okay, yeah, I already know that. That's why I'm asking for it. Okay, but anyway, here's some questions. Not all of the questions are great. I mean, I have to look at these and pick out the ones that I want. Not all of them are right on topic. Some of them are like for topics that we're going to cover later, or not really on, whatever. But I have to go through these and decide. But how long would it take me to come up with these? Like a long time, right? It spits it out like 15 seconds. Spits out these questions. Okay, then I say, write some pre-reading questions for this article. And then I give it another article. Now it gives me some actual pre-reading questions. So now I have taught it what pre-reading questions are. Now it's giving me what I want. Okay. Okay. So yeah, so that's what I wanted to tell you right now. Yes.
So you didn't actually upload the article, you just told it the name and the author?
No, I just copied and pasted.
Oh,
So my articles are on, I get them from the web, so I'm making like a Word document basically, or a Google Doc.
Can you theoretically just tell it if it's an article that's out there to say this article from, or does that not work?
I don't know if it has access to that. I think I would have to have like the abstract. And I'd have to give it the abstract or a summary, or maybe the main points of the article. Okay. And I would have to feed it that information. It's not, I don't believe it's like Google where it can do searches.
Is
that right, Jay?
Well, and to be clear, the basic ChatGPT will have issues with that.
Can you?
Yeah, I'm on 4.0.
Yeah, other AIs do have online capabilities, like Bing, for example. Bing will be able to pull up an article if you just give it a link, or sometimes even the name of the article. I think even 4.0 will do it as well.
Not out of the box, but there are tools.
Yeah. Can you go back to the top where you entered the article down? I just want to see what that looks like, at least at the top of the page.
Yeah, so I think I can answer your question. I've been using ChatGPT Store, and I also use OER resources, and there are articles that students can easily access online, and I refer to those articles completely. It has internet capability. but the summaries have made up quotes and they don't quite, I would definitely feed it in the article.
So you just-
Okay,
Sure, go for it.
is this what you wanted to see?
Yeah, I just want
Yeah.
to see exactly the format of how you did that, that's all.
Yeah.
And you just copied and pasted the text right into.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you,
It's,
generally speaking, you do not have to clean it up or anything. You
And
can
you
just,
say you do the premium version.
Yeah.
How much does the premium version cost?
I believe it's $20 right now, yeah. Yeah,
yeah, I mean, this saves me so, I mean, this is like a Netflix subscription. This saves me so much time, you
Yeah.
know?
and the premium version that I, so the ChatGPT 4.0, that premium version that's $20 a month is just one version of it. There's another AI called Claude AI, for example, that allows that import for entirely free. It has its own issues. It's not as good as ChatGPT 4, but there are alternative services that will allow you to use it for free.
So this is what it looks like when you're using the paid for version?
Yep. This
And so
is
you can see how they
ChatGPT
have
itself, for those of you who aren't familiar. Do you have a question? That's not showing up. Let me read it. Yeah.
Yep.
How about now? Awesome.
What's doll E?
Dolly
We'll
is
get there.
something that we're
Don't
gonna
worry,
get to.
I know. Yeah.
Okay.
When we talk about generative AI models, right now we're talking about generative text. It's generating text for us. Dolly generates images. And there are all sorts of other types of generative stuff, but those are the two most common ones. And by far, text is the one at the forefront of all the news and the hype these days. So who wants to see what their students are doing with ChatGPT right now? Okay. Later on, we're going to have kind of a back and forth interactive, including Q&A session. So we could go into a lot more detail about that. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I have a question, something related to you. Question is, can the school purchase a ticket for a ChatGPT Plus when it comes to it?
That's a good question. I don't know that myself as a student, but
I haven't heard of them having enterprise licenses. So I mean, as a faculty member, I don't know. Ask Omar.
yeah, I haven't heard of it myself, but you'd have to ask OpenAI specifically. So I don't know if anybody.
Do you have access to the
Yeah, there is access to Bing AI, but I think that's totally open to it. And it's totally free and it's. It does use ChatGPT 4.0. It is one of those AIs though where it has additional instructions that act differently. So there are some limitations there as well. Yes.
I have a weird question, how much is the AI learning the user? And the reason I ask that is maybe what we could do is get division level licenses for a division user that various people could use. I don't know if multiple logons are capable and things like that. I don't know. I don't wanna trick a perfectly nice corporation out of money, but as a way for people to be able to explore the thing. But at that point, if like you are in MSc, if you've got bio, chem, physics, and all these other people using it simultaneously, if it's learning the user because you're using it primarily for biology, it's learning to be more and more refined for your purposes. I don't know if that would be as useful unless it was at maybe the department level.
There are.
I'm probably going way down the administrative.
Yeah, it's kind of a complicated answer.
Okay.
There are ways to get it to learn you better, and there are benefits to having an individual account. Generally speaking, they tell you that they're not using any of the information that's going into it as part of its training data, but they use it to improve. So there is some data storage and privacy concerns that go along with it as well.
There's some big copyright.
Oh yeah, there's some big lawsuits going on right now. They're pretty interesting.
Oh, yeah. And that's also something we could talk about in the second session where we dive deeper into it. Like, for example,
We talk about ethics, yeah.
yeah, ethics, and also just about the large language models, using one of these public models versus spinning one up on your own. A lot of people do that as well, including students. But okay, so as I was saying, we could dive deeper later on when we go into the more interactive part. But for right now, this portion is basically just showing you all just a couple of examples. So the one example I wanted to show you is specifically for CS and CIT.
as you can imagine, it's going to be the computer programming courses, the instructors for them who are pretty much on the forefront of this. They already know about it. And they're the ones who are actually saying, okay, go ahead and use ChatGPT in the class. Some of them are even saying, well, okay, none of them so far that I've seen have said you must specifically use it for this class, but they are saying you can use it for this class. But in a way, from the feedback that I've gotten from the students in those classes, my fellow students, it makes them a little bit more wary about using it, because now they think, okay, now my instructor knows about ChatGPT. Maybe I should, watch how I use it now, so that he doesn't catch me doing something, a little bit unethical with it. So that's something you might want to consider.
Yeah, that's a question I have.
Yeah.
I don't want my students to use ChatGPT. That's something I'm just gonna have to deal with no matter what I say.
Possibly, because the way I look at ChatGPT and AI these days is like the way people view just computers in general back in the 60s and 70s. And I don't know how many of you are old enough to remember this, but I'm not, by the way, just making sure you know that. But there was a lot of hype back there when people were saying like, oh, computers going to make our students stupid and they're just going to be using these computers to answer all their questions and not going to learn anything. It seems to me that, AI at this point, I don't know if it's going to grow as big as computers are today, maybe in 20, 30, 40 years. But that seems to be about the stage that we're at right now. So you may want to consider, if you're like really hesitant about it, you might want to at least look into it a little bit, get yourself a little bit familiar with it, because it may be something that you, just like computers are today, you'll probably have to learn it at some point, at least at a basic level, or else be left behind. And then that'll be also something you might want to consider with your students. And do you really want to just keep them away from this technology, even though there's a really good chance it's going to be something that they really will need to know how to use in the future? That's kind of my non-answer answer. I don't want to push you into the deep end and say, oh, you got to do it because it's totally the future. I can't really say that for certain, but as a lot of us are trying to find out, it's certainly looking to be that way. So for my, what was supposed to be a quick introduction, this is going to be a CIT example of how students use it, because this is exactly how I used it last semester in my computer programming class. This was for a Python programming course, and for my final project, I was making a game. And in that game, I had a player at a certain location on a grid who was facing a certain direction, and I needed to know some kind of algorithm to figure out, okay, if he wants to get to this other location, does he need to turn left or turn right or just move straight ahead? Something fairly simple. And the way I worded it was, by the way, this is going to be a live example. This is ChatGPT right now. And something that you'll all start learning pretty quickly, actually, is that if you ask ChatGPT something and it gives you an answer, you could ask that same question again right away. It's going to give you not a completely different answer, but it's going to give you a different answer, differently worded, etc. So it's not something that you could use to have, write perfectly consistent output. It's not going to give you the same answer all the time. So because this is a live example, and this is technically about 6-7 months after I actually put my original prompt in, we'll see what it spits out. Okay. Given a location and a record for the player, how do I figure out? Oh, sorry. And a coordinate destination. How do I figure out which direction to turn to face that destination? Let's see if it figures out what exactly I need.
You spelled destination.
That's okay, because for some reason, error in moderation. That's a new error that I've seen. Let's try it again. And by the way, it might not even matter that I spelled destination wrong. To determine a player direction needs to face the destination. You can use vector mathematics. Here's a step-by-step process. Okay. As a programmer, this was the first thing it gave me, and I thought, okay, this is cool. I could learn from this, but it's not exactly what I want. Because what I really want
No.
As you can see, this is going into serious detail, okay? In a beginning Python course, this is way more than you need, and this is probably like extremely confusing to a student in that course. And we do an example. Player needs to turn to face a destination. You also notice that it actually like spits out words slowly, like a word at a time, once every like 2 or 3 words every second or so. This is one thing that we talked about right at the start of this class, is that these large language models, they're essentially under the hood. They're just trying to figure out what word should come next after the previous word that it just spit out.
So without you teaching it, it already knows Python?
Technically, it has been taught Python, just not by myself. So these large language models, but yeah, these large language models have been taught on a huge amount of data, and definitely
So they
Python.
already know probably a lot of programming languages.
Absolutely, yes. Programming is one of the like.
This is the fundamental problem I've got.
Yeah.
Is suppose the reason you gave this assignment to a student was to teach him how to program to do this.
This isn't teaching him.
This isn't teaching him how to do it. This is showing him how to go on ChatGPT and get the answer.
Exactly. So if you take a look at the generated Python code, the main point that I wanted to point out with this Python code is that, first of all, this is perfectly acceptable. It'll probably run. I'm not going to go through it in detail to make sure it's actually compilable and runnable, but I will bet that it is. I would bet money that it is. But however, actually, let me just glance at it. Yep. If I would copy and paste this directly into my project, it would not run. Okay, it would run, but my program would not behave correctly because this has a couple of serious logic errors. So had I not known like exactly how
9:30 the next
had I not known exactly how to solve for those logic errors and how to modify this so that it does run in my code, then I would have been dead in the water. So that's something, that's another thing that you need to know about large language models, is that right at the bottom here, ChatGPT can make mistakes. Consider checking important information. That's something that students are very well aware of. But it does mean that a lot of times, and including in this example and including in the code that it gave me when I first actually did this, it would not have worked had I just simply copied and pasted. And that's one way to actually check if students are trying to cheat using ChatGPT. If they copied and pasted something and they just assume that it would work and it just turns out not working.
And the integration of AI in your courses can actually take advantage of this. Like I keep picking on you, but like you said earlier, that it gives you a C-level answer. But then good, give the students that C-level answer and say, how can we improve this to make it an A-level answer? And use that prompt to take your course information that you taught your students and help improve that prompt better than what the AI itself is outputting.
So we want to make sure we have,
Yeah,
Lauren's going to jump on real quick and kind of
I just got one question.
give a brief demo about.
So if you went back to that original question, instead of putting Python, you put C# or C++, it would give you C# or C++ code? Is that right? Don't have to, right? But
no, you can say, can you generate this and see whatever it will.
that's all.
Yeah, there you go.
That's good, thank you.
Okay, so now we're gonna take a look at what Dolly is. So I'm just gonna start a new chat here. So Dolly is just another way of, it's built into GPT-4. So I know that Bing image creator is part of that as well. So it's the same model, just in different AI platforms. So let me see what I can ask it. I think I can just ask it pretty much anything to create an image of anything. But I want to make it kind of towards what I might use. So let's ask it to create an image that would kind of serve as a welcome page maybe for a intro to composition course, which is what I teach. Let's just see what it does. Alright. So it just gives you some time to create the image. And you can ask it anything as well. The other day I asked it to create an image of like a brown bear holding a bunch of balloons just for fun, and it did it pretty well. So, but I wanted to ask a little more complicated question. So let's see what it does with this.
So you didn't have to activate or click on the Dolly icon, all you had to do was type it into the message, the same message,
Yeah, so I did, I just typed it right into GPT-4.
yeah, okay.
So this is, I think they thought that I meant music composition, but that shows you how specific you have to be with the model, right? So I'm gonna correct it. I'm going to say, this is great, but I meant English composition.
Yeah.
Can you regenerate, right? And there it goes again. So let's see what it does this time. How do you spell Dolly?
So I'm not sure if you guys would know, but
D-A-L-L.
who does ChatGPT says owns the output of this, of your queries?
I don't know, that's a good question.
I mean, for example, that picture,
Yeah.
who owns?
Who owns it?
Oh,
Who do they claim? owns the picture?
Okay.
Because it's obviously litigation.
Right. Yeah, I don't know for sure.
So you can see it's like there's spelling errors in there, right? Obviously. But it did create this image here. So yeah, and I could probably ask it to
Correct the spelling.
correct the spelling. I mean, let's try it. I mean, why not?
It is really bad at spelling. My experience.
It's terrible at math too. Yeah. So if you do have a device, one thing, so we do want to give you a little bit of time to be able to play with this as well. So if you do have a device, feel free to sign into ChatGPT if you already have an account. There's also one, if you go to bing.com and click chat in the top, there's a free one that you don't have to sign in. One really useful exercise would be to plug in a prompt that you use for your class and just see how it addresses it.
On the images, what does it download at?
Probably, yeah. I mean,
So 4.0 is the only one that can do the images then? Cause I asked 3.5 to do an image and then.
Yeah, so the last one is the one, but if you go to bing.com,
Right.
Bing will do it for free.
I was just thinking about students, and do students typically know about things?
Oh, yeah.
That I usually
Oh, yeah.
come across or using ChatGPT, but.
It's viral on TikTok.
Okay.
They know.
yeah, so that's just one example of how you can use it for image creation.
Bing, Bard, Claude, ChatGPT, and if that Google, if you click on an icon in the upper right of a Google icon, it can generate AI.
Yeah, I'll be honest, students that I've had discussions with that have used AI in my classes, the vast majority of them has used it through Snapchat of all things. Because Snapchat has an AI built directly into it, yeah.
Alright, so. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I just wanted to show you a quick example of how you can use it for image generation. But I know I could probably even ask it to create an image without any words on it at all.
Yeah.
So it would just be that computer there and the poster in the background. It's kind of a, I don't know, inviting image. You can use that for your Canvas page or whatever you might want to do. I teach English, so I don't know how this would be used in other classes that actually utilize graphic design or image creation, that type of thing. But that's just how you can use Dolly if you have the premium version of ChatGPT.
Sure, yeah, so we have about 25 minutes left. How much?
9:15.
Yeah, 14 minutes left.
14 minutes left. And so one of the things that we wanted to do with this workshop is just give you some hands-on time to be able to try ChatGPT. We're very familiar with it, and so we would like to be able to help you out with it, answer any questions that you have as you're actually working with it. So if you have a device on you, and you have an OpenAI account, take a moment to open up ChatGPT. And what I would recommend doing is take a prompt that you have for one of your classes. Maybe you have something from Canvas or something that you can copy and paste over real quick, and just ask it to answer that prompt. Don't feed it anything else unless you want to. I would recommend doing it without anything prompted at the very beginning and just see what comes up. after you get that response, you can then tailor it a little bit more. Just say, okay, well, how would an undergraduate answer this who's taking this introductory? You can even ask it, how would a graduate student, how would a professor in this subject field answer it? And see how those answers differ. And just try it out. And if you have any questions as you're doing it, let us know. Anything to add? Cool.
And yes, you could in fact just write prompts as simple as that.
Yeah, one of the things that is kind of nice from an instructor point of view is that ChatGPT recently, a lot of people have been using it, which takes a lot of computing power. And so they have put in some limitations. So you can see Jay just asked it to write a 3-page paper. It told him no, it's not going to do that, but it gave him an outline instead. Now, that being said, there are other AIs that will do it.
It is on the free version.
No, this is the paid version. Even in the paid version, it's limiting it. Yeah.
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 But then you could ask it to write out each point of the outline. You could say, expand on, or write the point for point 1A.
Yeah.
And do that, write it for point 1B, and it'll do that.
Just want to spit out the whole thing.
Right.
And this is something I wanted to specifically point out is that if you put that exact prompt into 3.5, which is the free version, it doesn't have those limitations yet. It will give you a 3-page essay on the French Revolution. I just realized though that I can't do it right now because I'm still logged in.
On Dolly, does it produce photo quality images? I mean, that was more of a abstract.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like most of the images that it generates have that look to them. I've seen a few that are a little more like realistic looking, but most of them have like that kind of AI generated look.
Yeah, you can prompt it to the exact kind of style that you want. I will say being an image creator, it is Dolly, but they have their own parameters in it that actually make it work really, really well. And I've seen.
If you load images on it to how to make corrections or make changes.
I haven't tried. Try it out.
In ChatGPT, that's very difficult because it's a little more general, but there are many tools out there that will allow you to do that. If you're interested in that, and especially if maybe you're in a graphics designer class, then take a look at Adobe's AI tools.
One of the things that
Adobe Firefly, they
Yeah.
can do amazing stuff.
One of the things that I have played with lately is video creation. And so you can actually take still images, and there's AIs out there now where you can take that still, I think it was called Roadmap if I remember correctly. But you put the still image and you can say, take this part of the image. And for example, the one example I saw that was really good was a truck. Put a dust trail behind it so it's going down the path. And it creates a video doing just that. David, I think you had a question? Cool.
Was it photorealistic or was it?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, it could have been a Ford commercial. Does anyone come up with anything interesting or any impression?
I actually put in these list, I actually put the name and steps of the ethical hacking. And it came up with 11 steps. Most of them are right. A couple of them aren't right. Exactly right. 40 correct. Also asked us to write a paragraph or an introduction to ethical hacking. I did that pretty well. The reason I asked about that was
Has anybody been monitoring like keywords in the chat?
Yes.
I need a letter of recommendation.
A letter of recommendation. How well did it use?
It's amazing. I just said I needed something cool. So applying for education scholarship.
Yeah.
So what is that?
Okay, so this is just an example of Adobe Firefly. So Firefly is their AI driven. I mean, they have AI portions built into Photoshop and Illustrator, etc. But Firefly is their like specifically AI focused section of Adobe. And this is just their text to image portion.
Would you mind showing us how to access the computers?
Oh yeah, sure. That is actually very easy. So if you go to google.com.
I have a quick question for Sally.
The thing is though, you have to be.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. This is like the open, like, play with it, so it's okay if you have a couple of cross conversations.
So your text that you created for your class, did you cite AI? Did you cite it? So that students know?
I probably should, right? So I probably should put like,
I use this.
right, like
Generated with these.
generated, yeah, like written with the assistance of ChatGPT, is probably what I should put, like.
MLA has a system for citing AI. You need to put the actual question that you, I don't know, because you ask it so many questions.
Yeah, it's
So I don't know if that's the first question that generates
It's
the chat.
it's a really interesting conversation because. And yes, I wanna say that everything that you create and generate AI, and if you're not presenting it, it's not your own work, it needs to have a citation behind it. But, and one of the things about AI now is that it's being absolutely integrated into everything. Copilot is coming out, it already is out. But it's gonna be integrated into part of our own office suite here on campus, probably here soon. And so this is AI that's gonna be in Microsoft Word that students use similar to Grammarly. Grammarly uses AI now. So how do you cite it and you don't even know you're using it in some cases?
Yeah, and that's kind of a dilemma that I have, because on the one hand, I'm really concerned with academic integrity.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to use AI in my class, but I'm wondering how students will see that. They'll be like, well, a teacher just used AI to do all this stuff. Like, why can't I just, you know what I mean? So I think creating a discussion where students recognize the subtleties and the complexities of it is part of the challenge.
I will say, so in the next session, we are talking, how many people are coming to the next session? Almost everyone, cool. So one of the things that we will be talking about ethics in the next session a little bit. One of the things I said that I do in my own classes is on the very first day of class, I talk about AI. I mentioned that I use AI to my students in generation of certain material. And then I also go over exactly what is unethical use of AI. And I also go over how they can use it to help themselves. And so they're not questioning whether what they're doing is ethical or not. Kind of opening that black box a little bit to where, some people who don't know how to use it unethically might now learn. They're going to learn eventually anyways. I mean, it was asked earlier if I don't want my students to use AI, how am I going to prevent that? Experts pretty much say that, they're going to anyways. And so, sorry.
Is there software put in place or coming into effect to detect AI? I know it's hard to detect AI, but is there something that's coming?
There are detectors out right now but they have been shown to have high rates of false positive.
Okay.
And so
I did work with an instructor and I was very interested in that there was a possible software.
There is software that says that it will detect it. There is software that can detect it, but at the same time, they're also going to take legitimate student answers and also mark that as AI at times as well.
Okay.
In fact, there's a case that came out of Texas A&M where a professor actually put in a bunch of student responses into ChatGPT and said, hey, did you write this? And in most cases, ChatGPT said, oh yeah, that's totally my writing. He failed almost his entire class. Turned out it was a very, very bad method. I mean, I put in the US Constitution into the AI detectors and it came up as written by AI. I'm pretty sure they didn't have AI back then. Yeah, part of my thesis came up as well.
I put something in there that was almost 100% written by ChatGPT. It was a letter of recommendation that I had that ChatGPT wrote for me. And it said it was one of the free AI detector tools. And it said it was, 0%. So they're just not reliable.
I mean, I gotta admit, I'm at a loss at the moment. I mean, it's my class, how to deal with this. I mean, one of the things I try and teach my students, how to read cases and analyze them. So one of the pointers I have is same-sex marriage case, Albertville. So, okay, what's the difference in analysis between the majority opinion and the minority opinion by Justice Roberts? I typed that into ChatGPT and they spit out an answer It was actually a high C-level answer. But it was still a C-level answer, and trust me, there's a lot of students that are very happy in my class. with this.
Yeah, and we're not,
And I
just don't know what to do about it.
yeah, and I
It's
just,
like we're almost gonna have to make our criteria more challenging for students.
well, and we're not gonna pretend to have the answers for that either. I mean, yeah, this is, who use AI regularly have the same exact issue.
I gotta tell you, I think this convinces me not to ever do an online class again, or especially if I'm gonna get questions, especially if I'm gonna get tests that have essay questions. I just typed in 2 of my essay questions for one of my first exams. Yeah, both were B and A answers.
Yeah, we're gonna have to consider,
Never do online exam.
we will have to change how we do assessments, how we assess our
So
students.
this is something, I see a few of you who probably were in the Senate meeting where I spoke up about this. We really need, this is really going to make us, so changing the way that we do assessments is definitely one thing. But it really is going to make us rethink, first of all, online distance education, just in general. But also just,
Education in general.
pardon?
We're gonna have to rethink education.
And then, right, what I was gonna say is that we also have to think about higher education and our role in it. And really, right, what is the value that we provide for students? Right, so
We provide a value if they do what we ask.
Yeah. They need that.
That's.
Keep your hand's been up for so long.
I think the benefit that we all have here as educators is that what we are not teaching them to do what we tell them to do. We're teaching them to think critically, including the use of this tool and the ethical use of this tool. And so I would say that you are not going to tell them to not, if you were a math instructor in the 1980s, you're not going to tell them you cannot buy a graphing calculator and use it at home. They are going to use it. But what you are going to tell them is, when you get an answer that makes no sense on that graphing calculator, here are all the elements for how that type of math problem works that makes you understand why what the answer they gave you was incorrect.